future. That's why I'm standing to be leader of the Labour Party. It is the honour and the privilege of my life to be elected as leader of the Labour Party. It comes at a moment like none other in our lifetime. We have to trust one another and look after one another. I want to thank our Labour Party staff, who worked really hard. I want to pay tribute to Jeremy Corbyn, who led our party through some really difficult times, who energised our movement, and who's a friend as well as a colleague. And to all of our supporters and affiliates, I say this: whether you voted for me or not, I will represent you, I will listen to you, and I will bring our party together. We cannot fight the Tories if we're fighting each other. Factionalism has to go. It has to go. We have... The question should not be, which side are you on? It should be, what are you saying? What are you saying? You have to show we're the party of the Green New Deal. Do we mope about, head in hands, taking lumps out of each other, divided, factional? We've been doing a lot of that. Within elements of the press, to defend journalists, and it's very important we do. But in elements of the press, there's been vilification of Labour leaders that's gone on for many, many years. And Jeremy Corbyn probably got it worse than any leader this time. And when we went and knocked on doors and people said they didn't like Jeremy Corbyn, quite a bit of that was what had been fed into them by the press. We need to unite, come together and shape that future. That's why I'm standing to be leader of the Labour Party. It is the honour and the privilege of my life to be elected as leader of the Labour Party. It comes at a moment like none other in our lifetime. We have to trust one another and look after one another. I want to thank our Labour Party staff who worked really hard. I want to pay tribute to Jeremy Corbyn, who led our party through some really difficult times, who energised our movement, and who's a friend as well as a colleague. And to all of our supporters and affiliates, I say this: whether you voted for me or not, I will represent you. I will listen to you. And I will bring our party together. The toys if we're fighting each other. Factionalism has to go. It has to go. We have... The question should not be, which side are you on? It should be, what are you saying? We have to show we're the party of the Green New Deal. Head in hands, taking lumps out of each other, divided, factional. We'll be doing a lot of that. It's Keir Starmer here. How's the last few weeks and months been for you?
A few of you may think you know me. Many of you, of course, have seen my groundbreaking play, including you, Mr. Loach. You were very impressed, I know about that, yes. It was called The Lynching. Now, even fewer of you have heard about my daughter, Jackie Walker. Now, what I can say is I think there may be some here who are pretty relieved that they will not be having to share a stage with her, because you know what the Labour Party doing at the moment. I am, of course, allegedly the deceased mother of Jackie Walker, brought back once more up to life by urgent public demand at this time of crisis on the left. Now, just a few points before we begin. However it look, and forgive Lord Starmer over there, you can see he has covered himself with flags, but he can't help himself. Whatever he may look like, this is a serious inquiry. I'm sorry. Thank you. Second point. I want everyone to check that their phones are off. Last time I went to the theatre, last time I go to inquiry and film, you people, you put your phones off, your newfangled business. What are you thinking of? Turn your phone off. Now, to mention another point on the phone thing, we have heavy security here. In fact, Lord Sir Keir Starmer has lent us that heavy security directly from what they call it the London Labour Party Parliamentary Show Conference down the road. Now, as I say, Some of you have seen Sakir in the corner over there. Give us a wave, Keith. Come on, give us a wave. Look, he is trying to do it, but he's a bit stiff, you know. And he's also scared, you see, because he thinks somebody might take a photo of him. A photo doing something good. And then maybe later he changes his mind. And then it pop up on social media. And Laura Koonsberg, she said, look at them people. Looking at them photos of that poor Mr. Keir Starmer. You see, that kind of stuff on social media, it can be used against you. So one thing I can assure you here is that there will be no shenanigans, not like in the Labour Party conference show. What you see here, people coming in late, people taking photos, people wondering what the hell is going on. All of that is real. And the last thing for technicalities, I need to say to you, I am the chair of this inquiry. What that means, I tell people what to do. I am very used to it. It is not a problem. So let us begin. Now, I need everyone to settle very quickly. Why are you late, madam? You knew the time we were starting and you come in here late. For goodness sake, what has happened to Marxist timekeeping? Now this is the complicated part. I want you all to listen and I want you not to fall asleep. I know, particularly with the men in the audience, that is what they tend to do. And I am looking, I can see you. We are here on a serious matter. And it is a complicated matter because we are here to do the business that the Labour Party has not done. The Forde Inquiry Report. And to do that, we actually need to have some information. Presumably in the inquiry they need information too, but they don't seem to be doing much for it. But here we have information, and it is what I call a timeline. So you remember the sequence of what happened. In March 2020 was the date of the report of Labour's handling of anti-Semitism complaints was supposed to be coming out. In April 2020, the unredacted leak report was distributed. Unredacted, that means all the names of them rogues. And we all read it, of course, although we are supposed to pretend we haven't read it, because if you say you have read it, they will take you to court and sue the ass off you. Now, Forde was due to report back in mid-July 2020. Now, what is the date now? What is the date?
September 28th.
20 what? You see, sometimes being a slightly deceased person, I forget the date. Forde, he said, he was deluged with evidence. So he said, look, mid-July, it's not practical. And so he said, I will bring it to 2020, December. So everybody waiting for this to come. And then he changed it again. He said, early 2021. And then in February 21, he announced, his report can only be released when the ICO inquiries are complete. The Information Commission. When it is resolved, he says, then it will be better. Because he cannot conflict. Funny enough, when people ask the Information Commission, they say, he never gets in touch with us, you know. Never mind. media don't notice too much, it's okay. July 21, the Forde Inquiry says it will use best endeavors to report by early autumn. It's okay then. Early autumn, here we are! This is us! It is autumn. It is early autumn. You hear anything? No. So, this is how we are here. With our renowned panelists, well, at least one. Mr. Ken Loach. He gets enough of that. Not a knighthood yet. But even so, he is a world well-known filmmaker. He has asked me, to do a full tricks for him, and I tell him, wait, Ken, wait your turn. We can talk about the contract later. He is one of those, who wants to see the world change. And Mr. Ken, he was sent a letter of prescription by the Labour Party. So he is now no longer a member. All shenanigans makes him extremely busy. He has things to do, and so he has to leave us at 7:30. Oh! But until then, he is here with us. And second of all, we have Mr. Graham Bash. Retired solicitor to the oppressed. Jewish Voice for Labour, executive member, and a Labour activist, at least when I last checked, for 150 years. Welcome to Graham. And finally, who I have to introduce you, is here, Sir Norman Lickey.
Sir QC.
QCUC. QCUC. He is the counsel for the Labour Party, and thank you, no said. I will ask each witness in turn to take their seat and give themselves a brief introduction. They will then give their statement. Mr. Norman Lickety-Lick.
Sir,
will then ask question. The panel will then ask a question, one each, maybe two if I'm feeling good. And at that time, I may make some kind of short comment, but don't you worry yourselves about that. Now, the serious business. These people have serious stories to tell you. They are stories they have not been allowed to share, and we must not underestimate however we are feeling about the pain and upset these people have had to go through. And so I want you to listen extremely carefully. Please, Becky Matthews, can you take witness seat? Becky, please can you introduce yourself?
Hello, panel.
Please can you introduce yourself in terms of saying who you are and what you are?
My name's Rebecca Massey. I was an elected member of Brighton City Party executive, not for very long, because after a few days the Labour Party shut that down. I then became a chair of a branch in Hove, and I then became the treasurer of Hove CLP. Because I was on the left, from that point I have been persecuted. But I'm not going to bore the panel or the audience with the whole litany of the persecution. I'm going to talk about May 2020. I received an administrative suspension on May the 18th, 2020, and that's going to be a significant date. And I was also excluded less than 2 weeks later at the start of June. And I was also excluded for one single tweet, which I made 8 months earlier, which said, the 99% of people will have the best friend in Chris Williamson as an MP, who, if re-elected, will work for them. I was a Labour Party member in good standing in May 2020. At that time, I held no office in my branch or in the CLP, and it was in the middle of a pandemic. When I got the suspension on May the 18th, I found it extraordinary, so I immediately made a subject access request to the Labour Party. When I got that in November 2020, I understood why I had been expelled. And at this point, instead of talking about me, I'd like to talk about Sakia and tell you what Sakia was doing on May the 18th, 2020. On May the 11th, Keir Starmer had a memo from the British Board of Deputies, and I have the redacted version here. This memo listed 11 members of the Labour Party, which the Board of Deputies considered the most serious cases they have seen. And I came in at number 8. The evidence that was prayed by the Board of Deputies to Sir Keir on May the 11th was one tweet about Israel, which was made in 2015, and another tweet which was made in 2016, in which I said that Chuka Umunna was guilty of conflating Zionism with Judaism. So for the 8th most serious case, they couldn't find anything from 2016 to 2020, and they used 2 tweets which had in fact been before the Labour Party twice before and turned down. And I have to say, if 4 years later the Board of Deputies claim that I am one of the most serious cases of anti-Semitism, despite finding nothing, frankly, which cases are serious? Right, Keir Starmer, you took this list of 11 names and your immediate staff, known as Lotto, and Lotto ordered staffers to find something to expel me for, because he had to report back to the Board of Deputies by the end of May. And in my subject access request, there is an exchange of emails between the leader's office and the staffers until they eventually alight on the tweet about Chris. And then their emails say, will this do? Oh, I'm not sure. What do other people think? Yes, I think we can do her for supporting another candidate, and so on. They used that one tweet, they suspended me in May, and despite having supporting statement from the Labour MP I had campaigned for in the 2019 election, I was expelled. He was told to get me expelled. So I accuse Sir Keir of being a liar, a cruel and ruthless cheat, and the Labour Party are doing the bidding of who knows who, but it's certainly not the members. Oh, and by the way, Sakia, I didn't have to ring the Samaritans. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Please. This is a serious inquiry. Right, Mr. Lickspittle?
Licky, please.
Licky,
QC.
please. I beg your pardon. Licky, please.
Miss Massey, can I just... You can't deny that you did support a person who was a candidate for another party other than the Labour Party in the election. Is that not so? I.e. Mr. Williamson.
I deny that completely, Licky.
We've seen the emails.
No, the tweet. In the tweet, I say kind words about a man who had been in the Labour Party over 40 years, who was being abused on social media, and I sent a nice tweet about him. I did not follow it with, you must campaign for him, you must vote for him.
But you clearly were supporting him.
You can be kind, I beg your pardon, you can be kind and courteous to people who are not in the Labour Party. That's not forbidden.
Can I just say I'm somewhat constrained here because I can't possibly comment directly on the case as it's a disciplinary matter and therefore highly confidential. And in general, I would say...
Tricky Licky! Oh, sorry.
And in general, I would say that it's no surprise to me if the witness was guilty on both counts of being anti-Semitic and supporting someone standing against Labour. And I'm sure if Sir Keith would have commented to the Labour Party staff and commended them for getting 2 for the price of 1.
Well, thank you. I know it is hard to stand there and listen to this sort of thing going on, but we must move on. Mr. Licky Lick. He has the absolute right to talk nonsense whenever he wants.
I'm paid for it.
Indeed. Graham Bash, you have a question?
I do, Ms. Massey. I can understand why the Board of Deputies would want to get rid of you, but could you explain, because I think this panel here needs some explanation, why on earth do you think Sir Keith would listen to the Board of Deputies?
Well, I think Sir Keith himself, if only he wasn't so wooden and he could actually speak, I think he would say, because he is a Zionist without qualification and the Board of Deputies are a Zionist organisation and they're there to promote Zionist ideology.
Could I ask a supplementary, though?
Mr. Bash, please, if you ask a supplementary, can you speak up so everyone can hear you?
Well, you did say address the witness, but nonetheless, I'll put my back
Just
to you.
speak up and address the witness.
Ms. Massey, as you're aware, there are a number of Jewish activists who are anti or non-Zionists in the party. Many of them in Brighton. And I'm wondering if you could explain then, if this is about anti-Semitism, why Sir Keith didn't speak to those who number very many, Jewish Voice for Labour and a number of other good socialist internationalists who are Jewish. Why didn't they listen and speak to them?
A brief answer now, please, Ms. Matthews.
I cannot speak for Sir Keith. I refer to my previous answer, but what I would say to you, Mr. Bash, is that I have been a long-time campaigner for the rights of the Palestinian people and justice for them. And I think I might have annoyed some Zionists in Brighton.
Thank you very much. Now, your turn, Mr. Loach.
Yes, I've listened with some interest to your testimony, your evidence. But I'm puzzled because I would have thought that Sir Keith is a human rights specialist. So I'm curious to know why you think he wouldn't have due regard for the human rights of everyone in that unfortunate corner of the globe.
Mr. Loach, I can only say to you that I personally am very sorry because I have not seen any regard for human rights from Sir Keir Starmer.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
No.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's a very precise answer.
Thank you for your testimony. Right now, we have a very different sort of witness. We have a witness here who is so scared of her position, she is not prepared to come and speak. So I have been given the task to give witness for her. She has written her statement. I assure you, she is a real live person, and she will be watching right now what is happening. I want you to listen to her testimony. I'm a black woman, a single parent. I've got a 16-year-old daughter. I got into politics wanting to end homelessness. I joined up because of Corbyn, like hundreds and thousands of us. The election I worked on most was 2019, so to read what was in the leaked report, when I saw it in black and white with those nasty words they use about us black members, I mean, we were going day and night campaigning for Labour, and all the time these people were actually trying to sabotage, and they did it. We lost. Personally, I can never forgive them. I literally put my heart and soul into that campaign. And everything what that leaked report said is the same as what I've seen locally. But where can I begin? Problem is, I can't give no names. These people have money and power, and they will come after you. I'll try anyway. I've had negative comments, been questioned about my identity, my family background, in a way that no white person would be. Labour Party, anti-black racism. It's deep, on both sides, and not just on the right. There's a lack of understanding about black members, where we come from, how we're brought up, how class issues act in the black community. Just because someone is rich and black doesn't mean they're less likely to be stopped and searched or treated badly in their work. I mean, look at what happens to Diane Abbott. She's the most abused person ever in British politics. And then there's representation. Where I live, we have the third most black people in the London area. But I'm the only black Caribbean person in my CLP. Sometimes the worst racism, though, it's not the simple kind like calling somebody a name. It's more like a racism that's harder to prove, but that can be the worst kind. I'll tell you. My mum lived where she's lived for 30 years. First time she met anyone from Labour was 2019, under Corbyn. And that was because of Labour's new community organiser. It was her who said, yes, let's go. Let's canvass council estates. And when Starmer became leader, he sacked them all. Even though they were effective. Sacked them, Starmer said, so he could save money. But at the same time, he gave hundreds and thousands to what they call whistleblowers, even though solicitors told them not to do it. Now that money could have been used to pay wages to those organisers. If that had happened, more black people could have been brought into being active members. But no. You see, that's the kind of quiet racism that keeps black people out of the party. Now, I've made repeated complaints of racism for myself and on behalf of members of the group I work with, but it's always ignored. I've emailed compliance, Starmer, Evans, and the whole of the previous NEC. Only one person ever got back to me, and then they said basically nothing, except they would pass it on to David Evans, and then there was silence. Apart from when it suits his politics, Starmer, he just ignores race. Until the protests after George Floyd was murdered, they did nothing. Taking the knee and the Union Jack, that thing, flying behind them, that was just a publicity stunt. When he called Black Lives Matter a moment, that's what he really thinks. Only after there were so many complaints, Starmer took half a day of anti-black racism training. Half a day! He needs years. Seriously, look at Starmer's record. He praises himself as Director of Public Prosecutions, but the amount of black boys sent to prison because of him. In the 2011 riots, it was Starmer who kept those courts open and running 24 hours a day, processing mostly black boys as quickly as possible, and there was no justice there. And the impact on people living where I was, well, those families were evicted. They were evicted because one person had turned up at those riots. That's the impacts of his actions on my borough where I live, because that's what my borough, a London Labour-controlled borough, is known for doing, evicting black families. It's not a good time for black people in this party. It's demoralising, demotivating. From what I see, it's black people, even more than others, who've left the party. Black people who vote as a group for the party more than any other. One more thing on race. I mean, you know what I mean? Solidarity with Jewish people and what they go through. But there is a hierarchy of race in the Labour Party. They don't care about no other racism. They only care about anti-Semitism. And if you don't follow the leadership's line, then you are called anti-Semitic. I feel it's getting... Is that a witness? Yes. I feel that what Starmer's team have worked out is that the black people won't vote for anyone else. And anyway, the media doesn't care about us. So that's why he's not going to take any interest in our issues. But younger black people, they're more radical. More young black people going towards the Greens, and it could go that way. Look, I feel embarrassed having to come to the Forde Inquiry, you know, like this. This situation has never happened to me before because I don't care. I don't care what happens. I'll say what I like to anybody. But if I don't get this role as councillor, no black person from where I am is going to be doing it. And the ward where I live has got 55% of black people in it and no black representation. And that's not unusual. So I have to be smart. Black people have to be smart. I've earned being a councillor more than the others who are going for it. They've done nothing for the community compared to what I've done. I'd rather be showing my face. But don't make that make you think that I'm lying about what's going on in the Labour Party. This is what's happening. This is how it is to be in the Labour Party and black. Thank you. Mr. Licky.
Thank you.
Do you want to make your comment?
I do want to make a number of comments. Yes, that was a very moving statement, but I want to say that it was theatrical rather than legal. Yes, it's a point. I mean, this was an absent chair, an empty chair. A chair is an inanimate object. A chair cannot be a witness. A chair cannot give evidence. What you have heard now is not evidence but hearsay. And if I were instructing a jury, as I hope I am influencing this panel, I would say you should forget everything that you heard in the last 5 minutes, because none of it can be substantiated. And to support this, I want to say, and make this statement which I have been empowered by Sir Keith to say, that the idea that there is any anti-black racism in the Labour Party is purely nonsense. To prove this, I will read from the party's code of conduct, and I quote, "The Labour Party is a non-racist, anti-racist party, committed to combating and campaigning against all forms of racism, including anti-Semitism and Islamophobia."
Well, if you believe that, you believe anything. Thank you. Mr. Loach, would you like to say anything?
Yes, I have a question. Many people may have heard of a comedian, a comic fellow, David Baddiel, who wrote a book called Jews Don't Count. Now, how can you contradict that by even thinking that black people don't count?
Well, I am not the witness, but I have been black in my life. I don't know why you're laughing at that, but never mind. And what I would say is, he is the same man who was on every television screen, every newspaper, every radio show, telling you how nobody was listening to what he was saying. Am I right?
Yes, you are, yes.
Yes. Well, can I say, you try and be a black person and saying something in the Labour Party and get on anywhere. I would say there are many people who don't count in the Labour Party. Black people is one, Muslim people is one, and anti-Zionist Jews is another. But the truth is, the antics we see this week down there at their show just show you members don't count. So forget that.
An important supplementary question here, though, because you see, I would have thought you would have remembered the time when the same comic fellow, for comedic purposes, dressed up on TV, making hilarious fun of a black footballer wearing his hair like as Baddiel said, like a coconut. And he
it was a pineapple.
A pineapple.
It was, please.
A pineapple.
We have to have accuracy.
Well, we have to have accuracy. But you see, I would have thought you would have mentioned the pineapple because...
Well, you know, he has never quite said sorry for it.
But he doesn't need to. It's a joke. You see, can't you take a joke?
It is. You know what happened to the people? Let me tell you. My girl, Jackie, she used to be a teacher in a school. Mostly black kids in that school. And when he do that joke on a pineapple head, them boys, they are getting beaten up all the time. And the man with the pineapple hair dress, as he call it, he had proper depression. So funny, isn't it? That bad words for black people is just a joke. But when you are everywhere in every media, you can shout out that somehow Jews don't count. Thank you, Mr. Loach. Mr. Barnes.
Well, I can't address a question to the witness because She cannot be here. So I'll address a question to you, Comrade Lickspittle.
Sir.
Sir Comrade Lickspittle. Doesn't your response just show, doesn't it express just what the party's silence is on anti-black racism? Isn't it invisible to them? And don't your words just express that contempt?
I'm sorry, I am going to stop you there, because whatever I think, I am here to protect this inquiry, and Norman Lickspittle, Sir Mr. Him, is not here to answer to you, however much we feel. Thank you. I am now going to call the next witness. Esther Giles, would you like to come up here? Esther, can you tell us who you are? Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Esther Giles. I used to be a CLP secretary and a branch chair and a Labour campaign forum treasurer. I'm now administratively suspended and also have a notice of investigation for being linked with a prescribed group.
Thank you, Esther. Would you like to give us your evidence, please?
So you have to imagine that I am one of 70 people sitting here on this stage, because I'm going to talk to you and give evidence to you about the officer purges from November 2020. So I'll tell you about the diktats issued by the as then unelected General Secretary. I'll tell you about the plan that was implemented to exclude dissenters, and I'll tell you about the impact of that plan and where we are now. So the plan to suspend officers of CLPs was hatched on the eve of the release of the EHRC report, which was issued on the 29th of October 2020. I believe that, I have been told that, regional officers were primed to spot and punish dissenters from the 4 diktats that were to be issued by the General Secretary between the 29th of October and the 8th of December 2020. As part of this, the General Secretary reinvented the meaning of the term competent business to mean that it would be a crime punishable by exclusion. The suspensions, my 70 comrades sitting here, began in November 2020 and carried on to December. An open letter was signed by 284 CLP chairs and secretaries from 194 CLPs out of a total of 630, calling for the suspended officers to be reinstated and for the guidance to be withdrawn. But the General Secretary ignored this open letter totally. Then the CLP secretaries had a meeting with the General Secretary. He said, very kindly, that CLP secretaries were the backbone of the party. And he admitted that the situation was awkward. But the right to free speech would have to give way to his diktats until such time as confidence had been restored. And he said there can be no equivocation. So that didn't go well. So what was the impact of these suspensions as a result of these diktats and disobeying what we were told? 96 CLPs circulated or moved dissenting motions. So 96 CLPs disobeyed. Of these CLPs, only 35 actually had officers suspended. Overall, around 70 officers, my comrades here, were suspended from these 35 CLPs. The others got off scot-free. The suspensions were concentrated in some regions, with nearly half the suspensions being in London or the south-west region. Some regions had no suspensions at all, despite dissenting. The north had a similar level of dissent to the southwest region and had no suspensions at all. The southwest had 20. So what did these suspensions mean? The officer purges enabled harassment. In my case, my MP reported me for allowing a motion to be heard which was expressing solidarity with Jeremy Corbyn and which was passed overwhelmingly by my CLP. I was accused by disputes of conduct that was prejudicial or grossly detrimental to the party based on Rule 2.1.8, which I'm sure you all know very well. And my comrade Becky talked about her subject access request, and I too was very interested, and I applied for a subject access request, but it was refused. So I don't know what they're saying about me. And I believe similar applied to many of my 70 comrades. So 2.1.8 allows an absolute clampdown on freedom of speech and debate. It enables a corrupt NEC or a corrupt party to actually promulgate factionalism and harassment. The result of my administrative suspension and that of my chair was that my CLP was completely closed down. There were no meetings, no communications with members apart from an initial vague communication from a vice chair. From that point, the MP who had reported me effectively took over the CLP, writing to members and holding his own meetings. In other words, our CLP was completely disabled apart from the influence of our CLP. In other areas where CLPs were expelled, such as Newham, the CLPs again were completely closed down. So do you want me to finish?
I'm sorry, we have such a short time and I know it is hard for you to contain, but if I'm going to allow Mr. Licky-Lick, Sir Licky-Lick, and the panel to ask you questions.
Okay.
Please.
Shall I
Thank
stop?
you. Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, can I say that your use of the word diktats suggests that the Labour Party is something of a dictatorship rather than a democratic organisation. Can I assure you that we are not a dictatorship? I would not be representing a dictatorship.
Well, actually, you're right.
That wasn't a question, that was a statement on my part. The idea that there is any problem with free speech in the Labour Party is an entirely ridiculous one. After all, aren't we here discussing sensitive matters? What could possibly be the matter with that? And I would go further in this matter if I were free to, including explaining certain powerful safeguards for freedom of speech which the party, which Sir Keir himself intends to introduce very soon. I would go further with that and explain those to you were it not for the fact that the General Secretary has informed me that at this moment it is not competent business for me to discuss.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lick-Stickle. Okay, Graham Bash, would you like to say something to the witness?
This is very difficult to follow. You've given devastating evidence about the closure of parties, but what is the motive? Surely Sir Keith needs vibrant, energetic members canvassing to secure a Labour government. What's the motive? We don't only have to show, do we, what they've done, we have to show that there's a motive, and it doesn't make sense to me. Could you explain?
I'm afraid it makes no sense to me. In my city, Bristol, after the suspensions and after the CLP closing down, we had basically nobody campaigning. Bristol City Council, which had previously been a Labour stronghold, was lost and is now an equal Labour and Green Party council. So Labour has lost control of the local council. So I don't understand it either.
Shameful. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lowe. It's your turn.
I have a question from a different point of view, really. I think the issue that you've raised is one of solidarity. Solidarity, as you see it, with those who have been threatened or punished, like Jeremy Corbyn or others in that situation. Well, don't you realise how dangerous solidarity is? Because if your aim, you see, and this is where I think I might be able to help my fellow panellists here, because the aim, I would suggest, is that to make the party acceptable to the Daily Mail and the Sun. That's the point. And if your aim is to be accepted by the senior establishment in this country, the BBC, The Guardian, to name but a few, then surely you have to show that you do not, you have to get rid of those who suggest structural change and taking away those privileges. So solidarity with those is dangerous and they interfere with your aim. So do you understand the reason? There's a very cogent reason why people like you, I'm afraid, have to go.
Yeah, I understand we should really do as we're told. I really do understand that, and as you can see, I'm a very dangerous looking person.
You are very dangerous. You see, that's the danger. It's the quiet ones that are the dangerous ones.
Can I just say at this point, you can tell how he has become a very clever film director person. You can't get much past Ken. Thank you. Can you take your seat? Roger Silverman, will you give your witness, please? Mr. Silverman, can you tell us something briefly about yourself, like 2 lines?
Well, okay, first of all, I first joined the Labour Party, I think this is probably a record for anybody here, in 1960. And I've been a member of the Labour Party for most of the intervening period, with the exception of the New Labour years, for reasons which I don't need to explain. I came from a very veteran Labour family. My father was a Labour MP for 33 years until his death, incidentally twice expelled from the Parliamentary Labour Party for defying the leadership. My mother was an LCC councillor in the days of the London County Council. I stood 2 years ago for the National Executive of the Labour Party, and I'm proud to say that I reached stage 30 out of 37 ballots. So that's who I am.
Thank you, it wasn't 2 lines. I just point out, you're a very good man, but not 2 lines. You now have your time, please give witness.
Right. Now, I'm speaking about what happened to my CLP and the neighbouring CLP in, that's West Ham and East Ham, which together make up the borough of Newham. Newham has the richest possible Labour traditions. It was the borough where Keir Hardie first won a seat, the first ever seat for Labour in Parliament. It was a borough where Sylvia Pankhurst lived and campaigned for many years. In the neighbouring Poplar, George Lansbury led his famous revolt in the early 1920s. It's a 100% Labour council, has 2 Labour MPs, which have massive majorities, one of them the biggest majority, I think, in the country. So that is where we come from, and we have a campaigning record second to none of campaigning against the academisation of schools, against the privatisation of GP surgeries, against the erection of a monstrous concert hall in a residential area, of the Silver Link tunnel, which is going to add to the pollution in what is probably already the most polluted borough in the country, I believe. We run food banks, school uniform swap shops. I won't continue because of the time, but that's the kind of party that we have. And then in February, we were subject to a coup, and it had all the hallmarks of a military coup. It was like that, because what happened is they shut down our parties, both parties simultaneously. The pretexts that were given, because let's be fair, they claimed that there were queries about the membership and even that there was a suggestion of electoral fraud. The fact is that that it was we who had raised membership queries about false membership of people being signed up by right-wing members of the constituency, but more specifically that the charge of electoral fraud, we checked that with the Metropolitan Police, and they said that allegations had been made a year previously, but that they had been dismissed as being completely baseless and not worthy of further investigation. We believe the real reasons are that we had been campaigning on a socialist programme, that we'd been holding to account the members of the council for the policies that are being carried out, and in particular, and I'd like to say, in reply to our learned counsel here, when he says that free speech is guaranteed, one of the resolutions which we were trying to pass from West Ham CLP was that we want to have free speech within the party. And we were told by the party bureaucracy that that was not competent business. So what we then did is we moved a resolution of no confidence in the party leader. Now, we were told that also is out of order. Now, there are places where you can't question who's the leader. In Thailand, it's against the law to criticise the king. In Russia, you're not allowed to criticise Vladimir Putin. In Myanmar, you can't criticise the generals. But that's not good company for the leader of the Labour Party. So what I would like to say is that these attacks they're not isolated. They came after, there have been two members who've been expelled or threatened with expulsion. One is Mahmoud Mirza, who stood as candidate in a by-election a couple of years ago, at the same time as, who was it?
Never mind, you can come back.
I'll come back anyway. But he was expelled on the eve when he had the greatest number of nominations for the party. Sorry, it was the same time as Graham Durham and Joe Bird were also expelled. That's who I had in mind. Or Joe Bird was threatened with expulsion. And also, I've been threatened a few weeks ago with auto-exclusion. That's how things are nowadays. You used to have the right of appeal. You used to have a trial. You used to have a hearing. Now you don't even get a letter. You get an email saying you're fired, in the words of Donald Trump or Sir Alan Sugar. That's the situation we have now. Now we have, in effect, two Labour parties in Newham. One is the councillors and whoever's left still with the rump of the party, but we have an active campaigning membership of what we've had to call, by default, Newham Socialist Labour. And we're continuing all the campaigns and all the agitation that we had before. And this is a microcosm. It may seem like just local parish politics, but this is a microcosm of the disaster that is taking place in the Labour Party on a national scale. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sir Norman Lick Spickle.
I'll be very brief. I cannot possibly comment on the reasons why the local parties of East Ham and West Ham have been suspended, because they're very complex disciplinary and legal information protection issues. All I get is sort of rumours. I have even heard of cannibalism. I cannot even comment on that because I don't know beyond that. So my lips are sealed.
Well, if I may...
No, sorry, you may not. But I will thank you for that intriguing response, Mr. Lickspickle. Okay, Ken Loach, would you like to respond?
Well, as all the witnesses, this is extremely impressive evidence. But you see, I think I see the problem here in what you said, because you campaigned against privatisation. Now, that's fine campaigning against privatisation when Sir Keith gives 10 pledges. But if you were listening to the Andrew Marr show, you would have realised that actually we don't oppose privatisation now. We actually are quite happy with privatisation, provided, and you didn't say this, provided we only oppose it really when it's economically not viable. Well, you haven't made that case. So you see, by opposing privatisation, full stop, you put yourself really out of order.
Terrible, terrible crime.
And you see, this is never a question of principle. Never a question of principle for Sir Keith. It's just a question of tactics, really. And that we have to remember that. Principles don't count. Tactics is all that matter.
Well said. I have to say, for you people who still have your Labour Party card, you must be swelling with pride at the moment. Forget principle. This is the party of equality. It is equal for every bit of the elite. Thank you, Graham Bash. Would you like to give your questions now?
Well, I don't like, if I may say so, you attacking those of us who remain in the party. Not for long, but there we go. I'd like to ask Comrade Silverman, as I was listening to you, the terrible thought came to my mind that perhaps the leadership of the party detests its members more than it does the Tories. Now, I'm sure that isn't the case. Can you reassure me?
Well, there's a very quick answer to that. No. But if I may say, our learned friends may not be able to comment. In that case, I reserve my right to comment on what has been happening to the Labour Party. And as for Mr. Loach, all I can say is that most of us in the Labour Party, in West Ham and East Ham, and I think nationally, still want the Labour Party to remain loyal to the principles that it stood firm by from 1918 till 1994, which is to call for the public ownership of the means of production, distribution and exchange, and the best obtainable system of popular administration thereof. And that's what we're loyal to, and that is what the party has to return to if it's going to be able to solve the crisis facing the British people.
Can I just, for fairness, remind you that what Sir Keir says is he is for pragmatism. And when we think of pragmatism, as we say, it depends who is his boss. Thank you very much. At this point, please keep to your seats. We are now going to have an exchange of witnesses. Please, would you like to come off the stage? You can amuse yourself at this point. I could do a song if you like.
Are we allowed to talk to each other?
No, you can't talk. Okay, thank you. Would you like to now, we have a fresh supply. I mean, the truth is, we could have had thousands and thousands and thousands of people up saying the same thing. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we're on to our fresh supply. Remember, what we are trying to do here is not take every person, but to give you a selection of what people have been going through. So please now, can we have Ms. You notice I don't call her anything else because she's a bit touchy like that. Ms. Lear Lavin, please come and Thank you. Can you introduce yourself, please? 2 line, no singing.
It's my party. Okay. I'm Leah Levain. I'm co-chair of Jewish Voice for Labour. I rejoined the Labour Party in 2015, having left it in about 1984 when Kinnock was the leader and thought supporting the miners was somehow a bad idea.
Thank you very much. Can you give your evidence now?
Well, I had slightly different. I'm going to give a little bit of evidence, if I may, about myself, because as some people may know, on the 13th of August, Friday the 13th, a good day for a witch hunt, various letters were sent out, or emails, saying that I was possibly going to be auto-excluded because of the heinous crime of signing an open letter organised by Labour against the witch hunt in February or March 2020, and speaking at a meeting of Labour in Exile Network in February 2021. And these 2 organisations were among the 4 that had been proscribed on the 20th of July 2021. So in my response, which I got back very quickly, I reminded them that natural justice would tend to mean that you can't be guilty of a crime that you did before it was declared a crime. But I was a delegate to the Labour Party conference, and I happily, much to my amazement, got into conference on day 1, and I forgot to check my emails on the Saturday evening. And when I arrived at conference to go in on day 2, my pass no longer worked. Oh, apart from the police being automatically called, they then get the Labour Party official down, and she said, "Oh, you should have received an email." Well, actually, I received 2. So at 29 minutes past, I won't read all of it. I haven't even, I'm sorry about the phone as well. It was because I haven't had time to print this off, because I haven't been home. And this is the nonsense. I am now probably, my possible auto-exclusion is now an actual auto-exclusion. My name has been removed from the national membership system, blah, blah, blah. They do not accept my argument that retrospective punishment is wrong. I paraphrase slightly. And I don't know if this rule that they're quoting is the new one that went in, but the rule that I have broken is Chapter 2, Clause 1.4b, and it says, a member of the party who joins and or supports a political organisation other than an official Labour group or other unit of the party, their emphasis they've emphasised, shall automatically be ineligible to be or remain a party member, etc., etc. I mean, I haven't even had time to digest it. And I wonder what the definition of supporter means and what the definition of political organisations. And I would wonder if the Tory party, the Green Party, Labour Friends of Israel, the Green Party, the Scottish National Party, etc., were also, or the Independence Group, were also political organisations that were not official Labour Party groups, so that we would never welcome anyone from another party. So that's my current situation. That's my situation. But apart from me, so there's a lot of ways in which this is not about me. It's not about me, and I don't believe it's about anti-Semitism, although the ludicrous reason for which those organisations were proscribed was because they are anti-Semitism deniers. If there's any of you who don't know, the best evidence is that 0.4% of the Labour Party members have been accused of anti-Semitism. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt and assume they are all guilty as charged. Is that a party rife with anti-Semitism? I don't think so. Should anti-Semitism be dealt with? Absolutely. Is it a more heinous form of racism than racism towards black people, Muslim people, Gypsy, Roma or traveller? I don't think so. Anyway, Jewish Voice for Labour, so anyway. Just about Jews. I've been asked to talk about Jews, left-wing Jews, anti-Zionist Jews in the Labour Party. We have complained to the Equalities and Human Rights Commission because we believe that there has been racism towards left-wing Jews. And for example, our evidence shows that if you are a Jewish member of the Labour Party, you are 4 times as likely as any others to be accused of anti-Semitism. If you are a member of Jewish Voice for Labour, you are about 30 times more likely. And if you are a committee member of Jewish Voice for Labour, you are 235 times more likely to be accused of anti-Semitism. A couple of other things in this, the EHRC report. You're going to ask me to be quiet. And very quickly, there is an advisory board. We recommended, both directly and via John MacDonald, some Jewish people who might be useful for this advisory board to advise the Labour Party on anti-Semitism. Amongst those people were one of the JVL committee members, was a rabbi who used to be the head of liberal Judaism and is a Labour councillor, and Brian Klug and Anthony Lerman, both Jewish people who have devoted their lives to the study of anti-Semitism. None of those were good enough for that. And the advisory board not only has no anti-Zionist Jews, no strictly Orthodox Jews, no one, frankly, apart from the Jewish Labour Movement members, who I would even say have got anything to do with the Labour Party, and the Jewish Labour Movement's a whole other thing. And the chair of the advisory board, which I do find astonishing, Sir, is David Evans. David Evans is the General Secretary of the Labour Party. I would have thought he was the very person who should be receiving the advice.
Thank you very much. A strange old world, isn't it? There has been an outburst of anti-Semitism, it would appear, amongst Jews. Who knew it was going to go on? But thank you. Mr. Lickspickle?
I can be very brief on this one, and there's clearly plenty of evidence that you are a supporter of both Labour Against the Witchcraft and Labour Against You don't deny it. I have been instructed by Sir Keith to totally reject all the self-appointed Jewish Voice for Labour's so-called evidence. This Jewish Voice for Labour is a sham organisation, and it is part of a worldwide conspiracy. Please be quiet, keep order. It's part of a worldwide conspiracy to discredit the state of Israel. And if you question me further on that conspiracy, all I can do is say that I cannot possibly comment on matters that contain national security.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Bash?
Well, Leah, I found your evidence quite disturbing. I actually found it offensive.
Anti-Semitic, perhaps? Oh, sorry.
I was actually referring to the evidence of what the Labour Party is doing, accusing left-wing Jews like you, and I'm a fellow officer of JVL, and me. And I know that both of us, and nearly all officers and members of JVL, have fought against racism and anti-Semitism all their lives. And in my case, it was the fight against anti-Semitism when I was a teenager that brought me into the Labour Party 53 years ago. I feel deeply offended by this. Why are they doing this? Has it got something to do with clearing the Labour Party of socialists so that it can be safe once and for all for capital?
What was your answer? Yes.
Mr. Loach, would you like to see ask the...
Yes, I'll be brief. You'll have heard the earlier witnesses describing how the Board of Deputies of British Jews I've been writing to the Labour Party. Could you say, I feel that some of your evidence would seem to contradict this august body. So could you please explain why the Board of Deputies of British Jews should not have absolute authority on who is in the Labour Party?
Well, I could explain that, Mr. Loach. Firstly, they're not a Labour Party organisation. What has it got to do with them? Secondly, they claim to represent British Jews, and they probably are the most representative, but they barely represent secular Jews, and haven't got time here to go into all the why and how people identify as Jews. They barely represent the strictly Orthodox Jews and they have no right to speak to the exclusion, and they are absolutely committed to excluding. They are the people who are echoing what the so-called charity, so-called campaign against anti-Semitism say every single time they mention anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, which is a lot, that we are a sham Jewish anti-Semitism denying organisation. And I'll say one more thing about the Board of Deputies of British Jews. I was a councillor until May. I chose to stand down, and at one point the council needed to discuss whether or not it was going to adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism. I wrote a paper to the Labour group telling them why they should not. They all agreed not to. The pressure that mounted in the 9 or 10 days between the Labour group meeting and the council meeting was immense. And the Board of Deputies wrote to every single councillor saying why it was so important to adopt it. They did miss one of the councillors out.
Thank you. You're going to have one supplementary question.
Very short. Why don't the Board of Deputies examine the Tory party on this issue?
He is so clever. I'm beginning to think I might work for him.
Well, it is very, very clear, this is not making a cheap political point. The majority of the Board of Deputies have been openly identifying with Tories. So, and the other thing is that they have chosen, for whatever reason, and I think a previous witness referred to this, to conflate Israel, Zionism, with Judaism. We have the former chief rabbi and I think the current chief rabbi who says you can't put a piece of paper between Judaism and Zionism. And there are many, many, many Jews now, and because Zionism didn't even exist until 1897. So what happened to all the Jews before that? So they would say that. And the other question is, how come the EHRC, I'm sorry, Mr. Loach, you didn't ask me this, how come the EHRC didn't follow through on an examination of the Tory party into Islamophobia when its own chair, Baroness Varsi, complained about it, raised the issue to such a point, at the end she resigned. I don't know what's going on, but I could speculate, but I don't think I'll be allowed to.
Thank you very much.
Can I please tear up my Labour Party card?
How can we all, perhaps we could sing the red flag while Right. Can I just say, I am a bit uncomfortable about this talk about the Board of British Deputies Jewish. Because I think we need to see them more as a Tory party at show. Really. And I was going to think of another joke, but maybe not for now. I'll tell it in the bar. Okay. Thank you, Chris. Now, you know, Chris has a very special place in my heart. Because he got my daughter in so much trouble. I have forgiven you, Mr. Williamson. I am taking it on the chin, as they say, and I will treat you with decency and respect as this man deserves, the only one in the Labour Party to stand up to be counted. Come and take your witness. Now we don't want to be here all night. We don't want to hear nothing about the committee you went on, who your friend is, or nothing like that. Can you just give us a 2-line rendition of who you are?
Well, I'll do my best. I joined the Labour Party in 1976 as a teenager. I devoted my life to the Labour Party. I eventually got elected as a councillor. I became the council leader. I ensured that Derby City Council was one of the first local authorities in the country to ensure that we commemorated Holocaust Memorial Day. I was eventually elected as a Labour MP for Derby North, my home city. Lost my seat very carelessly in 2015 by just 41 votes. Came back in 2017 fighting the most marginal seat in England. Many people were telling me to disassociate myself from Jeremy Corbyn. The most important thing was to win and then we could regroup, and I said I wasn't prepared to do that. 1, because it was a dishonourable thing to do. 2, Jeremy is a good friend of mine. And 3, I think his programme is electorally popular. And so we put out a press release saying that I am the most Corbyn-friendly candidate standing in the anywhere in the country, standing in the most marginal seat in England. And one other thing, I also joined the Anti-Nazi League in 1977 when it was founded and spent my life fighting racism, literally fought racists on the streets, fighting the National Front, and on building sites where casual racism was quite a thing in the 1970s.
Now, I just want you to take that as an example for when you say to an MP, just 2 lines, please. Thank you, Mr. Williamson. Can you give your evidence?
I'll try and be brief. I've only got 4 minutes.
You have got 4 minutes.
But I believe when you have a platform, whether it be a councillor or whether it be a member of parliament or a position in the party, National Executive Committee, it's important that you use that platform to fight for your principles, really. And particularly when I got re-elected in 2017 and the anti-Semitism witch hunt was ratcheting up, I felt it was important to defend people who had been falsely accused. And so I made it my business to defend your daughter, Jackie Walker. I made it my business to defend other people like Tony Greenstein and many other Jewish members of the party who were being accused of anti-Semitism. I was also involved in a democratisation campaign to try and ensure that we gave the Labour Party back to its members, so that we put the Labour members, the grassroots members, in the driving seat to hold MPs to account and to be in charge of making policy going forward. And I always felt that if we put the members in charge, and as Ed Miliband once said, if we'd listened to our members a bit more, we wouldn't have made as many mistakes. We wouldn't have gone to war in Iraq. We wouldn't have introduced tuition fees. We wouldn't have got benefits for the poorest people in the country. And over time, I was subjected to all sorts of complaints. Indeed, within a matter of weeks, Ruth Smith was calling for the whip to be withdrawn from me for having the temerity to say that the smears against Jeremy Corbyn, that he was a Czech spy, and particularly this nonsense about him being an anti-Semite, was a dirty, low-down trick and bullshit. And apparently I was the main topic of conversation at the Jewish Labour Movement meeting 2 or 3 weeks later. To cut a long story short, all these complaints built up. I was told by Jenny Formby that she gets more complaints about me, she told me, than every other member of the Labour Party put together. I said, well, that clearly tells you a story, doesn't it? It's clearly a confected campaign. I was told that, called in because I'd spoken at a meeting in Sheffield, and said that Labour was being demonised as a racist, bigoted party. This is the party, I said, that had done more to stand up to racism than any other political party, and certainly done more than any other party to address the scourge of anti-Semitism. And I also made the point that we were being too apologetic about our record in fighting anti-Semitism and racism. And for that, I was accused of being an out-and-out anti-Semite, and had also had the temerity to book a room to show the film Witch Hunt, which focused a lot on Jackie Walker's story, but it was really about the way in which anti-Zionist Jews in the Labour Party were being targeted for particular disciplinary treatment, etc. I was called in for a meeting. I was told that I needed to make an apology. I did that under sufferance as a favour to Jeremy Corbyn and a favour to the Lotto advisors, leader of the opposition office advisors. And within a matter of a few hours, no, less than that actually, a matter of a few minutes actually, 40 or 50 minutes, that had been elevated to a full inquiry. By the afternoon, I was speaking to a colleague just off the parliamentary estate and received a telephone call to say it's been elevated to a full suspension. As I was taking the telephone call to tell me I was being suspended, Sky News came down the street and were filming me, actually being told I was being suspended, and as soon as I came off the telephone, I was asked what was my reaction to being suspended. I was eventually reinstated into the Labour Party in June of that year. And within 48 hours, there was a huge furore created, how disgraceful it was. Over 100 Labour MPs had signed a motion calling for, to go to the next parliamentary Labour Party, calling for the whip to be withdrawn. 50-odd members of the House, Labour members of the House of Lords had signed that motion as well, which was due to go to the next PLP meeting on the following Monday, but Jenny Formby, the General Secretary, beat them to it and decided to reintroduce the suspension, so she resuspended me. I then took the Labour Party to the High Court, and there were 3 preliminary hearings about whether we could have an expedited hearing. The Labour Party argued that there was no evidence of an early election, that Mr Williams was merely speculating. We have a fixed-term parliament, there's not going to be a general election until 2022. Eventually, the judge on the 3rd occasion threw that out and actually set a date. Within 36 hours, I received a letter and I thought, they've seen sense, they've withdrawn the suspension, everything's going to be fine. But no, it was to issue me with a 3rd suspension to say, we know you're already suspended, but irrespective of the outcome of the High Court hearing, you will remain suspended until these further allegations have been investigated. And I accused Keir Starmer, the Parliamentary Labour Party and the right-wing bureaucrats of actually sabotaging the unique moment in history, the opportunity that we had to bring about an irreversible change in the balance of wealth and power in our country. And I think that's an unforgivable thing that they did, and they stand accused and should be damned to hell, in my opinion.
You can always rely on Chris to be subtle. Okay, thank you, Mr. Norman Licky.
Thank you. I rise with some reluctance here because this witness places me in a rather delicate personal position. I have a full and devastating refutation of everything that the witness has said. But alas, I cannot read it. Or even mention the witness's name, or admit that I have seen him or met him. Sir Keir informs me that this, if I were to do this, it would jeopardise my membership of the Labour Party. Now, you may find it strange to be I am a knight of the realm and also a member of the Labour Party. It is possible, our leader is, both of those things. And I do not want to jeopardise my own personal position as a member of the Labour Party. So I am going to have to state for the record that I haven't heard or seen this witness, whoever he is, and if anyone has any pictures of us together, I will sue them for everything they're worth.
Now, we have come to that time where I'm afraid Mr. Loach is going to have to leave us.
I've got 10 minutes.
Oh, he's got 10 minutes! He's having such a good time!
I am. It's brilliant.
Thank you, Mr. Loach. Would you like to ask a question?
Well, it's just yes, it is a question, but it's more information really. When this outcry, when your suspension was revoked, and I remember it well, and I was listening to the Today programme. I mean, an object lesson in objectivity, if ever there were one. Absolutely objective. It always takes a balanced view between the Tories and the right-wing Labour Party.
But in this instance, by some extraordinary coincidence, they happen to have Lord Falconer, Charlie to his friends, if he has any, and he was outraged, as you say. Now, how would he know? How would they be able to get him so quickly onto that Today programme when the news had only just broken? And why would they ask him?
Spooky.
There was a conspiracy between the media, as I discovered on the day that I was suspended, and there was clearly, in my opinion anyway, a conspiracy between the right-wing bureaucracy and the right-wing PLP and the media to smash the Corbyn project and to smash the opportunity to bring about that irreversible shift in the balance of wealth and power in our country.
That is not so much spooky, but the way they organize it is. Can I just tell you as well about Mr. Lord Falconer? Because my daughter Jackie, she write to him too. Because he went on the television telling all sorts of lies, nonsense about her. Dear Lord Falconer, I say to him. And you know what he answered? Nothing. Thank you, Mr. Bash.
Well, Mr. Williamson, firstly, a comment, and I realise by making this comment, I'm actually risking my parliamentary career. I think, on behalf of us all, we want to say how much we appreciate the solidarity that you showed Dorothy's daughter and all of those who are victims of the witch hunt. And it will never be forgotten. My question is this: what you have expressed is a very clear story of how the establishment exerts its pressure over the Labour Party. We know that. So the question I've got for you is, how do we resist that pressure?
Well, that's a very good question, and people have different views about it. My opinion is that the Labour Party is finished and that we need to regroup. We've heard the Bakers Union has disaffiliated today from the union, from the party. And we're still strong, aren't we? I mean, those hundreds of thousands of people that joined the Labour Party because they were inspired by Jeremy Corbyn, those millions of people who agreed with the programme that Jeremy set out, haven't disappeared. They still hold those views. And our job is to remember the importance of solidarity. Remember the words of Percy Shelley, that we are many and they are few. And when we stand together, we're strong. And when we stand together, anything is possible, comrades.
Thank you very much. But can I just say, this is a story about why you should never say sorry.
Yes.
Never say sorry.
Absolutely.
You know how they say it?
Yeah.
And then what we have to think is, how can this happen when we have our people in supposed control? We need to think about that, because that is the clue of what is happening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, last but not least, we have Greg Hadfield. Woo-hoo-hoo. He is a big, important journalist for all the bad newspapers. He has been there. So he can tell us something of that, perhaps, or perhaps not. Can you take the witness, please?
My name's Greg Hadfield and I'm a socialist. I grew up in Barnsley, in a mining town, as a contemporary of Billy Casper. I played on the same football field as Billy Casper and Brian Glover. I saw Paul Foot above the Devonshire Arms at the age of 14, I was, not he was, in 1970. And that's when I became a socialist. Because my grandfather died down the pits of Barnsley, not as a miner, as a rescuer. He went down and rescued a team in 1936, came back up with them, and went back down again and got blown up. My mother was 6 years old. My uncle was 10 days old. She was still in hospital. Warncliffe Woodmore. I was at Warncliffe Woodmore Memorial when the BBC, I think it was Sky, was filming me. And a Labour MP said they've shipped in Hadfield to launch Barnsley Momentum because they haven't got enough supporters in Barnsley. I tell you what, they've got supporters in Barnsley. We've got supporters in Barnsley. It's not the Red Wall. It's a socialist city and a socialist town. And there's nobody more respected in that town than Ken Loach. And if people say to me, as someone who's been thrice suspended, not for anti-Semitism, no, well, they said that, but for being a socialist, and then auto-excluded, not for being anti-Semite or socialist, no, I was auto-excluded, i.e. expelled, silly phrase, on the same day as Ken on the 13th, for organising this event, for being on the same stage as these socialists, for being in the same room as you guys and girls, right? Well, I don't care. There you go, yeah? But at least I've still got a pass for the Labour Party conference for some bizarre reason. That's my story. Have I got 4 minutes now?
You now got 2 minutes.
Okay.
Are you finished?
No, I'm gobsmacked. I am emotional about the fact that someone like Ken, not because he's a great film maker or whatever,
You're not?
because we have great, not because of that. We have great human beings in the party, great socialists. We've got Ken, we've got Chris, we've got Paddy, we've got Jack in the socialist movement, and we're not welcome. So we have to do something else. We have to build a movement. I don't care about parties. I don't like to join. As I said when I was auto-excluded and given 7 days to reply, and they took 3 weeks to reply and then say you're auto-excluded, here's your pass. I said the only 2 things I'm a joint member of besides the Labour Party, and ever have been, is Momentum, for which I get some emails. That's about it, yeah? And the Fabians. So if I'm suspended, excluded, I'm excluded, expelled, for being a member of Momentum or the Fabians. So I say to the Momentum and Fabians, come to us and support us. Stand side by side. Show solidarity. We are socialists, and that's our party. And all those Labour councillors that Momentum and some of us in this room helped get elected and have never spoken to us since, but have been invited here. All those MPs that are in the PLP but are too scared to put their head above the parapet, they don't realise, yeah? They don't realise that when the Labour Party puts at the bottom of the email, ring the Samaritans. I rang the Samaritans. And I said, I'm strong. I can handle it. Despite the shit that's landing on my shoes, my family's shoes, my home, my city, where I live. There are countless, uncounted, countless people who are being hung out to dry, going through mental health and all sorts of shit. And John McDonnell doesn't apologise to them. We want truth and reconciliation. We want truth, but we want truth first. And we want support. And if they can't be bothered support, then we don't want to be part of them, because we can build our own movement, and we've shown it. We've had 200 people buy tickets here. We've had 4,000 people watch it online. We will do it month after month after month. I'm 65, but I sat next to Loki, who's younger, last night, and he will take it on. It's not down to me, Graham, Jackie, Ken, Chris, Paddy. It's not down to us, right? It's down to the next generation. But for goodness sake, let's just keep doing it.
Going to change the order. I'm going to ask Mr. Roach now to speak, because he is going to have to run, and then you can speak, Mr. Lickey, after.
Okay, thanks very much. I think I'm very touched by what you're saying. And it's a critical moment. It is a critical moment, because we have 400,000 to 500,000 people who were touched by Jeremy Corbyn despite mistakes he made, Chris. And we can't let the moment pass, because those who are in the Labour Party and who say it is viable, it's possible to reclaim it, have to tell us what that path is.
Yes.
Because we know the rules are being bent and no one in the mainstream media will hold them to account. We know the more they want us to demonstrate and cause a fuss, because it demonstrates to the right wing and the establishment that Starmer will kick us out. He wants to kick us out. He wants a small party. It's Mandelson's gave the game away. You know, they want a small party where they speak directly to the media. So, and get donations from big business. So in a way, we endorse their project by the louder we complain and the more fuss we make. But we do have those hundreds of thousands of people who are still there. They won't be there for long. They will evaporate as time passes, month after month. More will turn away, more will get alienated, more will turn their backs on politics. But there are great campaigns, Black Lives Matter that you referred to, the the protection of climate change, the defence of the NHS, campaign after campaign after campaign. Brilliant people, as we know. We are hugely strong if we can get that movement together now, but it's urgent. And we need the people who have, we can't be like the grand old Duke of York, you know, march the army to the top of the hill and march them down again. Yes. And that's what's in danger of happening. So we need those people who are still in the Labour Party to be part of a movement. Doesn't have to be a political party yet, but to be part of a movement that will stand for the basic principles of socialism that we've articulated, that you've articulated. We make those clear, that we draw people in again, we inspire people again, and that needs Jeremy and John and Diane to be part of this. And it needs the unions as well to give us financial and political clout, like the bakers, like
Yes.
the FBU,
Yes.
like the CWU, like Mark Savotka, like Matt Rack, to come out and be part of a grand movement. And if we raise the flag, then people will come to us. But it needs people that they recognise. I mean, individual groups can do it. Oh, they raise the flag and say, follow us, and of course it won't happen. I mean, I was part of Respect, I was part of Left Unity, and we learned some hard lessons there. You know, a party on its own with a small group will get taken to the cleaners again. But we are many. We've got to seize this moment. We really have to seize this moment. Anyway, thanks a lot, and see you soon.
To make his comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I find it difficult to follow this your emotional display, Mr. Greg Hatfield. Yes. But and I've listened with interest to your suggestions, and I think some of them are worth taking up. But if you want to try to change the Labour Party, I think you must surely know you've got to go through the democratically agreed procedures, the time-honoured processes which we stand by. Sir Keir has no fear of democracy whatever. He is a Democrat in every inch of his body. After all, can anyone argue that this year's conference was anything but a glorious example of democracy in action? Democracy in action, not democracy in action. Democracy in action.
Thank you. And Mr. Bush, please, your
Mr. Hadfield, I've got no questions to you because I think you and Ken just said everything that needed to be said. This may be the last time I'll speak publicly as a Labour Party member. I doubt whether I'll get my 53 years, certainly not after tonight. But I would like to say this, that we've got urgently to find some answers. I said at a meeting yesterday, quoting a great Marxist, Gramsci, that the old world is dying, the new world is struggling to be born. And we have to find some answers to the really difficult problems that we have now that so much of the party has been closed down to the left. And I think the only way we can at least begin to fight back is not to follow the old trusted and failed methods of keeping your head down. We have to say what we believe in, we have to speak truth to power, and we have to organise. It won't be easy, comrades, but some of the testimony tonight, I think, is an inspiration to us as we try and build a better world. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade, for coming tonight. What is clear is the path ahead of us is open, but we don't know which way to go. There is one way to go, and that is through solidarity. And that is what we must remember. So I have to thank all the people who have been involved in this evening of madness. I have to thank the people who have given us the Labour Party show to be even more crazy than we are. And I have to make a particular thanks to all of those who have made Resist possible. Don't forget to put money out of your pockets into the buckets, because if you like what you see, if you want to have an opportunity to resist, only you can make it happen. Thank you, comrades, and solidarity.
Hi, it's Keir Starmer here. How's the last week's month been for you? It is the honour and the privilege of my life be elected as leader of the Labour Party. It comes at a moment like none other in our lifetime. We have to trust one another and look after one another. I want to thank our Labour Party staff, who worked really hard. I want to pay tribute to Jeremy Corbyn, who led our party through some really difficult times, who energised our movement, and who's a friend as well as a colleague. And to all of our supporters and affiliates, I say this: whether you voted for me or not, I will represent you, I will listen to you, and I will bring our party together. We cannot fight the Tories if we're fighting each other. Factionalism has to go. It has to go. We have... The question should not be, which side are you on? It should be, what are you saying? What are you saying? You have to show we're the party of the Green New Deal. Do we mope about, head in hands, taking lumps out of each other, divided, factional? We've been doing a lot of that. Within elements of the press, defending journalists, and it's very important we do. But in elements of the press, there's been vilification of Labour leaders that's gone on for many, many years. And Jeremy Corbyn probably got it worse than any leader this time. When we went and knocked on doors and people said they didn't like Jeremy Corbyn, quite a bit of that was what had been fed into them by the press. We need to unite, come together and shape that future. That's why I'm standing to be leader of the Labour Party. It is the honour and the privilege of my life to be elected as leader of the Labour Party. It comes at a moment like none other in our lifetime. We have to trust one another and look after one another. I want to thank our Labour Party staff who worked really hard. I want to pay tribute to Jeremy Corbyn, who led our party through some really difficult times, who energised our movement, and who's a friend as well as a colleague. And to all of our supporters and affiliates, I say this: whether you voted for me or not, I will represent you, I will listen to you, and I will bring our party together. The toys of we're fighting each other. Factionalism has to go. It has to go. We have. The question should not be which side are you on. It should be what are you saying. So we're the party of the Green New Deal. Do we mope about, head in hands, taking lumps out of each other, divided, factional? We're doing a lot of that. Hi, it's Keir Starmer here. How's the last few weeks and months been for you?
I remember it quite well. Sorry, we didn't come tonight.
Difficult conversation because I was convinced that we have to go into Parliament temporarily. Yeah, and she said, and I just hard to believe
Hi, it's Keir Starmer here. How's the last few weeks and months been for you?
And I remember that. Did you?
Better than the English one, the German. I'm not sure enough the French sometimes think the state judge might intimidate you, isn't it? The state, so when you know, if you just take over 4 years ago, I just thought, yeah, now, right? And I'm still, yes, believe it, if not, and it was like go back. So I was really
I did, yeah, I did. It's actually more fun playing the villain than it is to play the good guy.
because you weren't like ridiculously
Thanks. You've got to be credible.
I know.
I nearly lost it in the last game with stuff and
we have to appeal. And we have to appeal
mean, you give a very appropriate obviously. So you can see
because I've been suspended twice and now I've been expelled. I attended a Zoom meeting for singing against the witch hunt 6 weeks before they were actually expelled. And I just thought, I didn't realise it. Doing this. Ken Roach said the same thing. He said I couldn't possibly dignify the charge as ridiculous as that was response. And I found the same. The only response was cancel my standing order. I didn't even bother to, to defend it. You have to defend yourself. You couldn't defend. Disbanded or whatever. I just surprised that I was a member of three. But I was going to see
because everybody, maybe when I was working, I just make a point of just putting the name every day.
Yeah. Well, the only thing they produced was a screenshot with Paddy O'Keefe there and my picture there on a Zoom call.
I think it's quite sinister, actually. I really do. Sorry? Well, that's right. Who's doing that?
I can't bring myself to
what the party said is that they
It is so obvious. Which channel for news?
Yeah.
Well, again,
this is disconnected with either of my suspensions or my eventual exclusion. I was reported to the regional office by my ward secretary for what he said was an anti-Semitic post.
You've seen my dream.
I got bananas. This was during the 2019 election. And I just didn't want to talk to any of the guys because if they told us. And what we did, Martin and I went to Oxford to campaign against Boris Johnson in his own constituency. But I remember losing it at in fact, Keir Starmer was during the election campaign hosting things, and I went to him and he said to me, you know what's happened? I said, I know exactly what's happened. And I said, I want to sue you for defamation of character, and I will sue party organisation.
Oh no, that's right. No, but I was kind of.
And he said, I didn't tell anybody. I said, tell anybody.
So this is it.
You reported me to the regional office, and I've told everybody that's confidentiality. How would you want to observe confidentiality for an organisation which has no interest in your welfare at all? So I didn't. Anyway, and he was really, I think, worried. So he came back. He got a letter.
Carolina O'Reilly, there you go.
Sorry, there seems to have been a mistake. I'm withdrawing my complaint. And I said, a mistake could be a slip of the tongue or a slip of the pen or something. I want you to tell me that what I've been accused of is baseless, utterly unfounded, and untrue. You use those words, and I will again. He used exactly those words. And I think that's right. He didn't bloody do when it all started. He didn't call them out. Yeah. I mean, we assume nobody could possibly believe that Corbyn is an anti-Semite. And yet something like 20 or 30% of people now do believe he's an anti-Semite. Maybe more.
I was saying, sure, the people who would believe that move because they wouldn't even accommodate for another night.
The Guardian would believe it.
Oh, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, no, look,
yeah, that's it.
Kate Dyson, can you do it? Is that right?
Work out, I mean, I don't really be ready to go to London before
Check, check. Hey, 1, 2.